In this video tutorial, you will learn how to change settings and parameters of the ED2 series IED via Smart Monitor software and via display on the IED front panel, and also how to compare setting groups. To change IED settings and parameters in Smart Monitor, connect to the IED according to the video tutorial on the operation of ED2 device's IED communication settings with PC. Next, log in as a user with appropriate rights. Default usernames and passwords are listed in the operation manual of ED2 series devices. Settings of ED2 series device can be changed both individually and in groups, using the import tool. Imported files are exported from other devices via Smart Monitor. This process will be described further. To import settings to the IED, move to the Smart Monitor menu, import configuration from XML, and select the file. When the settings file is uploaded, the changed parameters will become blue until the settings will be recorded. Next, select Write command on the toolbar and confirm changes by entering the password. There is also an option to save settings to PC. To do this, move to the Smart Monitor menu, export configuration as XML, and save the file. This file can be opened in Microsoft Excel or any other text editor. If settings and parameters are edited individually, upon completing the edit, save them to the IED. Select the Write command on the toolbar to save settings to the IED. Next, confirm change of settings by entering the password. All device settings and parameters that can be edited are located in the Settings section. Next, explore the basic settings and parameters available for editing. More detailed information on operation with different sections can be found in other video tutorials on configuration and operation of ED2 devices. The Analog Inputs item allows viewing and adjusting the parameters of analog signals received by the IED, and values calculated on their basis, as well as values received via digital communication protocols. The Calculated Measurements item has a non-editable parameter, update period, time after which the calculated values are recalculated. The smoothing factors that reduce the influence of the ripple of measured analog values on the calculated value are also set in this item. Next, move to the Calculated Measurements Parameters item. This menu item contains settings used in calculated values that allow quick changing of their variables. Settings have the value range indicated in the description column. If values of the active setting group are common for all groups, its change will automatically change settings for all groups. Check Configurator app to know what mode is chosen, editing of all settings or individually. IED's binary inputs can be set up in the Digital Inputs item. In this item, the received signals can be enabled, disabled, and inverted. The offset from contact bounce and interference can also be configured here by setting the time delays for actuation and reset of binary inputs. When the discrete input entered is unchecked, the value on deactivate becomes available. Please note that input circuits can be unavailable for inverting due to the absence of permission for this in the parameters of configuration file. The Discrete Outputs item allows editing the names of binary outputs, configure latching, and time delays for reset. Front panel LED indication is shown in the LEDs item. This menu item allows editing LED names, which are also stated on the indication plates on the front panel of the IED, color that corresponds to 3 states: red, green, or yellow, and the latching checkbox. Now move on to edit parameters of the indicated measurements item. This item allows displaying the analog signal values, calculated values, information on protections, mimic diagram, or IED menu items. By default, a service binary input call is used for call-up of indication. Besides that, any signal from the signals table can be assigned as indication call-up, for example, programmable push button. Add sources using the relevant button. Measurements can be assigned to every source individually. And used sources of indication call-up are removed using the relevant button or through the context menu. Reassign the added source through the context menu. The All Measures field has the list of information available for displaying on IED. Analog inputs, protections, calculated measurements, mnemoscheme, menu items, and commands that can be displayed are found in this section. Elements are moved from the All Measures field to the Indicated Measurements field, thus forming the list that will be displayed on the IED. The display of these measurements depends on their order in this list. Measurements will change at every actuation of the indication call-up source. Use the relevant button to remove measurements. Specify the settings of switching devices in the relevant menu item. This item has the switching devices available for control via digital communication protocols, and also the parameters of the switching devices. To edit the parameters of the switching device lifetime estimation, select the device and specify the parameters. In the protection in or out item is made enabling or disabling protections and measuring elements, if this is permitted by the configuration. Protections in the Protect Settings item are divided into groups that can be configured in the configurator software in the Protection Grouping window. The following sub-items are available for editing in every group: Parameters, Registration and Oscillography, Oscillography of calculated parameters, Output table, LED table, and Logic. More detailed information on each sub-item can be found in the video tutorial on configuration of ED2 devices, measuring elements and functions. If the settings of function or measuring element, logic element, or calculated value are individual for all groups, settings for every such parameter can be checked out in the Differences in Setting Groups menu item. This item shows parameter titles, their values for every setting group, units of the settings, value ranges specified in the description column. If the Only Different Values box is checked, only the setting groups with differences in values will be displayed. The Registration and Oscillography item serves for assigning the signals for disturbance recording and registering of all logic signals with recording of event state and time. The oscillography parameters have the following editable parameters: pre-accident time, maximum fault time, time after the accident, and number of oscillograms. IED signals, for example, analog and logical signals, calculated measurements, etc., can be assigned for disturbance recording in the relevant sub-items. Binary signals, such as logical signals, digital inputs, can be assigned for event recording. Changes of signals assigned for registration will be displayed on the IED, if the display box is checked. Note that some signals can be unavailable for assigning for event and disturbance recording. Permission to assign signals for event and disturbance recording in Smart Monitor has to be set while editing the configuration file in Configurator. Additionally, logical signals can be assigned as the reason for disturbance recorder start by rise or fall. For easy operation with a large amount of events, specify and reset settings of all registered signals via the context menu. Move to the System Parameters item, next to the Terminal Options sub-item. The display field allows setting the language, LCD backlight timeout, setting the time from the last hit on any button on IED front panel, after which the device display goes into standby mode, reducing brightness to a minimum. Login timeout sets the time after which the IED resets the current user authorization. The menu item that will be showed on the IED display right after its launch and in the standby mode is selected in the default menu item. Compensation of process time of binary inputs serves to correct the status change time of binary inputs when saved to the event recorder. The When Going to 1 field specifies the time in milliseconds that will be compensated upon switching from logical 0 to 1. The When Going to 0 field specifies the time in milliseconds that will be compensated upon switching from logical 1 to 0. While viewing or setting the measured values via the IED display, the values will be displayed by default as they are set in the Display Values parameter. The type of displaying can be changed. The Setting Groups sub-item shows the number of setting groups existing in the IED. Setting Group Switch Source. The source can be represented by the programmable push button or a logic signal, for example, from CAM switch. Number of the setting group, which will be active when the IED is first switched on. Proceed to the Digital Communication Channels item, next to the Communication Parameters sub-item, that is designed to configure the network interface settings of the IED, such as IP addresses, addresses of serial communication ports and others. Reservation settings allows selecting and setting the chosen PRP redundancy protocol and link backup redundancy protocol with monitoring of communication channels. Analog input parameters and calculated measurements parameters allow setting the deadband either as a percentage of the base value or as an absolute value, as well as alarm and accuracy thresholds for the relevant values. In addition, for calculated values, the smoothing factor can be specified and a signal can be assigned for disturbance recording. The time synchronization item serves to adjust synchronization of the device internal clock. The control sub-item provides an option to remove and add such time synchronization protocols as SNTP and PTP by clicking the relevant buttons. Parameters are designed for general adjustment of parameters for software and hardware time synchronization. Depending on used time synchronization protocols, the corresponding sub-items are added, designed for editing the individual parameters of SNTP and PTP protocols. More information on each section is presented in the time synchronization video tutorial. Data transmission protocols are controlled via communication protocols item. Communication protocols, which lead to the IED order code change, can be added only via configurator software. When adding such protocols, make sure that the device has the relevant license file installed. If some protocol will not be used, it can be disabled by unchecking the protocol enabled box, except for IEC 60870-5-103 and Modbus RTU protocols. Let's explore the editing of parameters and settings through the IED's front panel. All editable parameters are located in the Parameters menu item. Move on to it and log in with the rights to change them. Note that after editing, all changes of settings and parameters have to be saved in the IED using the Save Settings command. Otherwise, they will be reset after 60 seconds of inactivity or at the IED restart. The list of available combinations for each section can be viewed in the Help window by opening it with the FN1 key combination. All analog inputs can be viewed in the Analog Inputs section. Rated value of the analog input and transformation ratio value can be changed in this item. Select a parameter for editing by moving the cursor with navigation keys. Press the Enter key to switch to the edit mode of selected parameter. The word edit will appear at the bottom of the display. Enter a new value using the built-in keyboard. Wrongly typed symbols are deleted by the FN left key combination. To confirm the value, press Enter. At this moment, the input value is checked automatically. If the entered value is unacceptable, the previous value is returned. Press the ESC key to exit from the value edit mode without saving. To view protections and measuring elements of the IED, switch to the Protections section. Protections are enabled/disabled and settings for settings groups are edited in this item. If values of the active setting group are common for all groups, its change will automatically change settings for all groups. Use the FN2 key combination to view the setting values of other groups. Move to the Logic Elements section. Such settings of IED logic elements as time delays, program switches, counters, pulse generators, counter of OLTC stages, pulse former are available for editing here. The Matrix section serves for viewing and setting the matrix of LEDs, binary outputs, and logical signals. In the Fault Recorder section, IED signals can be assigned for disturbance and event recording. In the Disturbance Recorder menu item, all signals are divided into groups: analog, logic signals, and calculated values. The signal is assigned for disturbance recording by placing a plus against the required signal. Disturbance recording time is specified in the corresponding section. Switch to the Event Recorder menu item. In this item, signals are grouped into logic signals, binary inputs and outputs, calculated values of logic type. The signal is assigned for event recording by placing a plus against the required signal. Switching device lifetime estimation parameters are edited in the switching device remaining life. To set the IED system parameters, switch to the relevant section. The setting of network parameters, serial ports, And network redundancy is made in the communication parameters. The parameters of analog inputs, as well as binary inputs, and binary outputs are set in module parameters. Smoothing factor, calculated values settings, and their maximum values are set in calculated values. IED interface language can be set in the display settings item. One can quickly switch between the language chosen in the configuration and Russian from the display without restarting the IED. To view and select all supported languages, switch to the System Parameters Terminal Options section in the Smart Monitor software. Restart the IED to apply the selected language. Adjustment of IED backlight and LED brightness. An adjustment of parameters for settings display in primary or secondary values. To adjust the synchronization of the device internal clock, based on which the event time is registered, move to the Time Synchronization section. Adjust software or hardware synchronization, depending on its type. If there is no synchronization, set the date and time manually in the System Time section. The Threshold Values section serves for setting the deadband, which determines the value for which a signal has to change for its renewed value to be transmitted via the digital communication protocols. The deadband is set either as a percentage of the base value or as an absolute value. When one value is set, the other will change automatically. As it was mentioned before, after editing, all changes to settings and parameters have to be saved to the IED using the Save Settings command. If the settings and parameters of the parameters menu item were changed, and you leave it by pressing the escape key without saving the settings, the message offering to save them will appear on the display. To save settings, press Yes and wait for the saving to be completed. Successful saving of settings returns the IED to the menu and it starts operating with new values of settings and parameters. If No is pressed, the IED returns to the main menu without saving them. If Cancel is pressed, the IED will return to the parameters menu with all previously made changes. This video tutorial is over. We hope it was useful to you. Thank you for attention.